Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, to Bitcoin News Live. I am your host, Rob Wallace, and I'm very grateful to have you here. It has been the most tumultuous month I have ever seen in Bitcoin, and so many of the things that we once believed need to be rethought, reworked, and redrawn as we bring in new people, because Bitcoin is going to keep going up. New people are going to come in, and we need to teach them the right way to self-custody. And that is the point of this show. So let's get right into it. In the last 30 days, many of our beliefs surrounding Bitcoin self-custody completely broke. A Coldcard firmware flaw generated weak seeds going back to 2021. And over $100 million in Bitcoin was swept from people who thought they owned the safest hardware wallet ever made. Trezor customers had their names, home addresses, and phone numbers leaked by a shipping partner, many of them people who had just switched from Coldcard over to Trezor. And a fake Sparrow wallet sat live in the App Store for years. And now even BitBox audited its own code with AI and found critical bugs. Buy a device, write down 12 words, and believe that your Bitcoin is safe. Yeah, well, that era is completely over. So today, we throw out the checklist and rebuild self-custody from first principles. My guest today, Tony, founder of the Bitcoin Way, and Dr. Francesco Madonna, CEO of BitVault. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here. How are you doing, Tony?
Thanks, Rob. It's great to see you guys again. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Cheers. Yes. Well, there's so much going on here. You guys are experts in self-custody. I'm sure you have onboarded dozens, hundreds, thousands of people to taking sovereign ownership of their Bitcoin. But this last month has been extremely hard and a gut punch to many of us who believe that self-sovereignty and self-custody is the way to go. So I want to kick it over to you, Tony, to begin. I believe that not a single Bitcoin Way customer lost Bitcoin in this Coldcard hack.
Yeah, that's correct, man. And we're very grateful about that, because our process, our guidance is from the get-go never dependent on finding the best, piece of hardware out there. Our process was really to build a mechanism so that the failure of any one moving part would not blow up the whole thing, right? And so that was really put to the test in the last 2 weeks, and thankfully it passed. We have, zero reports, zero verified reports of anyone losing funds. And in light of that, we are increasing, or rather leveling up our baseline of paranoia and OCD to a really, much higher level in light of everything that took place. This was, in my view, of course, we're extremely sorry for those that actually lost funds, because, these are innocent folks that did nothing wrong. They followed, the instructions, they did what they were told, and, they just, carried on with their lives, assuming that they were safe. And unfortunately, they were not. That's the bad news. But usually in every bad news is a silver lining, right? Because it brings, an exponential amount of attention to something that, we thought was a nothing burger. And because of it, everything changes. The key component for me was the AI. This probably went unnoticed for so long because, human intelligence has a certain limit, right? And now when we're dealing with something we've never had before, well, we have supercomputers that are able to detect things much quicker and, with much more precision than any one of us. And, this is exactly what happened. And so we need to adapt to this landscape. The other silver lining is that I think it was a much needed wake-up call for the industry in general, right? You cruise along thinking everything is okay until something, like the bullet goes right by you and you're like, whoa, all right. Time to, to wake up, pull your pants up, and start doing things slightly differently, vis-a-vis this new digital landscape that we find ourselves in.
Yes, and many of the rules that we once had need to be rewritten, as you said. Francisco, I want to kick it over to you. When it comes to the Coldcard bug and the lack of entropy, from a math point of view, how bad was this from your view?
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm not a developer. I'm the architect and CEO of BitVault, and so I think it was pretty bad. Like a few seconds were enough to crack it, and with the GPU, and it was clear by the odds. And yes, what is astonishing is the fact that many people relied on the brand, and they just had some group thinking going ahead for years, and nobody actually verifying their setup and the code. Then you could argue that not everybody can verify the code, but I think for serious holding, you should lay out all the defense and the checking and the verification as much as possible, going to all of the line of self-custody. So I think the code should have been verified by somebody. This is very sad because it's eating the core community of the Bitcoin non-custodial holders, people who have held for even a decade or more, and that's brutal. So the morale is not a normal bear market, because the morale is low. Also, people with conviction and that arts. Having said that, we believe in BitVault that the protocol should have a major weight in how to deliver security. We utilize Miniscript with time locks, and the ability to time lock your coin is actually a plus and a no-brainer for to deliver after security. And this is because the time locks basically give to the user the priority over the attacker to spend first. So this is something that now is possible with our work. And as a developer of the product BitVault, we are very sad for what happened. However, we are incentivized to do better, because let's face it, without self-custody, there is no Bitcoin. They can print 55 million coins and sell air, and it doesn't make any sense from the scarcity. They just go to the bin. So we really need to come together as a community to perfect self-custody, to make it at a level where this thing cannot happen anymore. We put our effort into this, and I think by leveraging the security protocol with the Miniscript and time locks, it's a really sound way to do this.
Yes, and I love the fact that you guys are both self-custody maximalists, but you come at it from different angles. I know Tony's a big proponent of a single sig with passphrase. You're over here, Francisco, with multisig and Miniscript to create these vaults. So there's different ways to skin a cat, and we'll get into all that later on. But first, I want to address some of the other stories that happened after Coldcard, right? Because it was just a deluge, and the bad news for self-custody really didn't stop. And so, of course, there's Trezor, which is a very trusted name in the land of self-custody, but they had a problem with their shipping provider. As many people had had their security setup blown apart because of this Coldcard hack, and went out and bought a Trezor. And then it turns out that their shipping provider had a complete data breach, where the last 90 days of shipping information for countries, including the United States, were completely just blown out there, right? I mean, home addresses, telephones, emails, everything you need to identify someone was put out on the internet from this data breach. So that goes to the question of, how do you even buy one of these devices? Tony, I'd love to kick it over to you in terms of safely purchasing a hardware wallet. What should a person do?
Man, there's a lot to say about this. And I mean, I'd kick it off by saying that, when Bitcoin was put into this world, it shed a spotlight on so many things that have gone unnoticed for a very long time. I mean, Bitcoin for me showed us just how far we drifted by giving up, common sense and privacy for the sake of convenience. And now, because it's something specific to our life savings, we are realizing, what a bad mistake that was. There's no end to being creative. I mean, the most logical thing is just not to buy it and send it directly to your own home. There's other services like PO boxes and things of that sort. If you're staying temporarily at, I don't know, like you're on vacation to an Airbnb, you can time it specifically to be sent to that location. Things of that sort, that you can go out of your way to do. But most people, first of all, don't know about these things, or they just don't bother because they think everything's going to be fine until the day, that it's not fine. And that's a very sad reality. And again, all of these, incidences are going to be wake-up calls. I mean, it's going to force all of us to start doing things differently, because we are no longer living in a world where, whatever is good enough. It really isn't. And again, when you have rampant AI agents, who never sleep, who never tire, are always learning, going out of their way, being weaponized to essentially steal, those low-hanging fruits. Well, then if you do nothing, you are at some point going to be part of that headline that, the world reads about. And we don't want that. We want everybody to start, upgrading everything about themselves. Their IT skills, using the excuse, oh, I suck on a computer, that's not going to fly anymore. In 2026, you are going to have to bump up that baseline to learn, a certain minimum now, just to keep yourself safe and aware of, what's happening around you. And same thing with, privacy. Most people don't think twice about it. It's like, yeah, whatever, like I'm not doing anything special. That's like the worst mindset to have, right? Like always assume that something really bad is going to happen to you, and take the extra 2-3 steps to ensure that it doesn't. It doesn't take that much time. But because we've been brainwashed, to prioritize convenience over doing the work, well, it's not the same game anymore. And so it's a process, man. Like you don't have to do everything 0 to 100 overnight, but it's essential to start moving in the direction, bit by bit. You change something one day at a time, and before you know it, you've come like a very long way from where you started, and you realize like how bad you were before you got there, right?
100%. And this is a thing that most Bitcoiners don't really think about when it comes to purchasing a hardware wallet privately. But I'd like to highlight an article here by Guy. He works over at Casa. He wrote an article called Buying a Hardware Wallet Privately, and it's pretty extensive, and it goes through a lot of the basics. Of course, use a PO box, a private mail, buy it at a conference in person with cash is a great way to do it without being traced. Amazon locker, even he advises getting it sent to a hotel if you're staying at a hotel, and that's what Tony just advised with the Airbnb. So there are steps that you can make to make sure that there is no private information given over when you buy one of these devices, but we have to think adversarially now, right? I mean, that's what this last month really proved to us, that we can't take this for granted anymore. And so now, Francisco, I mean, you are over in Europe, and as we've seen, in France, the amount of $5 wrench attacks are just getting out of control. Seeing this on the news, is this a big deal within the Lugano Bitcoin community? How are people on the ground in Europe dealing with $5 wrench attacks on Bitcoiners?
Yes, this is definitely a big issue in France, and it's keeping going. I think it's one attack every 3 days. I heard. So they definitely need a product like ours, and totally. So they also need to take protection, as Tony was saying. And now the point is that once the damage is done, unless you change house, it's going to be very, very difficult to seek a remedy. And so you have to think precisely what you're doing once you order the wallet. I still prefer to use online channels to order rather than the physical stores, because there is wagon sealed, etc. But there are logistic processes, chains which you cannot control if you buy it locally, and you cannot control if it's been shipped to you, but at least you bought from the website. So it's really all of these things, Airbnb, hotels, etc., PO boxes, is what people should do. And I think that the other kind of protections should be put in place. In Europe, the situation aside of France is not that bad until now. The latest Trezor leak, we don't know what is going to happen. I experienced myself the ledger list many years ago, and that was the first breach, which really impactful, and that was scary. I was lucky enough that I was changing the house in that period, so I gave some peace of mind to myself. I say, okay, they not know where I'm going to live next. That was moving from Italy to Switzerland, but if I had to remain in that house, I don't know. And there is another issue with data leaks, is that what comes in the past bin on the dark web, you don't know if it's everything. So they could sell a portion or just release a portion and have the rest for private channels. So you don't know that. So once a breach happens, you can never assume to be safe, even if you are not in that list, because there's no way to know it. And it's really scary. Found myself in kind of this situation a few years ago. I don't know if that was related to the ledger, but could be. Anyway, found myself in a situation of kind of physical attack, like a gang, organized gang. So it wasn't a physical attack in the end, but the simple thought that it could have been was really scary. So when you are in that situation, or you think you could be, it's mind-blowing. And I don't have particular advice, aside what Tony said. You need to know what you're doing and really have a kind of mindset with adversarial thinking, because if you don't do it properly, then you will pay the consequences after many years. And the internet doesn't forget. It doesn't.
Yes, and I think these are services that Bitcoiners are going to look into, protecting your privacy, clearing data on the internet that has been breached. But when it comes to hardware wallets, I mean, the biggest flaw in Coldcard, of course, was its entropy generation. And we trust these little devices to pick a really big number, right? From somewhere between 2 to the 256th power. But at the end of the day, it's really up to us to generate entropy to make sure that these seeds are actually truly random. And I want to give a shout out to this company, Nova Sapien. They sell these kits where it helps you generate entropy, right? They give you a seed signer, right? And then you open this thing up, and it's got everything you need to generate entropy. So I know you can see it here. There's a bunch of stuff from the dice to the power for the seed signer, metal seed plates here, and everything you need to create truly fresh seed phrase from pure entropy that you roll yourself. So, Tony, I want to talk to you about making entropy. Do you advise all of your customers now at the Bitcoin Way to roll their own dice and make seed phrases this way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in light of this event, now our baseline has been upgraded so that there's no more trusting any hardware with any of the RNG. All the private keys will be generated using independent entropy, using dice rolls or other similar methods. But that way, the hardware itself has no more impact. I mean, at some point, I believe that the device will only be used for signing, and then perhaps future iteration of this hardware will no longer do RNG, simply because the default would be not to trust it, right? And in light of this as well, I believe that a new tag on products is going to be required. AI verified, AI audited, AI investigated, because you can no longer rely, no matter how smart of an individual you think you are, right? Like just out of sheer paranoia because of what this device protects, you are going to want to redirect super intelligence on it just to make sure you haven't missed anything. And this isn't going to be like a one-time process. I mean, things evolve, things progress, and you're going to continuously have to put it through the most strenuous tests to make sure nothing breaks at any given point in time, because of how much is riding on that product, right? And so this is how I see the evolution of self-custody progressing. I don't think self-custody is dead by any stretch. It has not failed. Bitcoin has not failed. Nothing has changed. What has changed is, the attack vectors on the idea of self-custody. Because again, if you zoom out and understand what's going on here, it is something the world has never known before. The separation of money and state. This was never going to be like, oh, okay, it's here now, we're going to walk away. It's going to be do everything under the sun to keep as many people away from the true ticket to freedom. So this is why personal responsibility and discipline are not just buzzwords. They are real things that you are going to have to adhere to religiously and always fine-tune. It's never been a set it and forget it, like security, cybersecurity, privacy, self-custody. It's an ongoing process. You keep at it, you repeat it, you fine-tune, you modify, you do whatever it takes to keep that bank, which is you, fully bulletproof as much as possible forever, right? And the existing system doesn't want that. And so, of course, if you look back at the last 2 weeks, many things happened at the same time. And depending on what tinfoil hat you have on, you can come up with your own theories. We had the Coldcard. Then we had, the BIP 110. Then we had this funny organization that all of a sudden now wants to, help fund, Bitcoin development. And then we had a whole bunch of other things. And they all happened within like days, right? And so is this just a coincidence? I don't know. But again, I never expected Bitcoin's adoption to be smooth. They want you to remain dependent on a system that they control. Bitcoin's for everyone. But if you don't adopt self-custody, then you are, I'm sorry to tell you, there's no way to sugarcoat this. You're simply not sovereign. If someone else still has to say yes to your decisions around money, nothing's changed for you. You're using Bitcoin as a buzzword, as a wrapper, completely useless. Self-custody has always been and always will be the final destination to true sovereignty. And so there's no other way to do the work. You either do it or nothing changes.
Yes, 100%. And for everybody who is watching live, I would love for you, if you have any questions for our guests, we're going to go through how to do self-custody in this new era of 2026 on the back half of the show. So if you have any questions you want to ask these experts, be sure to drop those in the comments. And when it comes to generating entropy, I mean, I took it for granted, right? I trusted Coldcard to do it for me. And I know that like on the highest level of being a Bitcoin maxi, you're supposed to roll dice, but now it really makes sense. You really have to. You can't trust these devices when it comes to that precious random number. And so the question is, for self-custody moving forward, is this too big of a barrier for the average person? Can we make the case to the average person, you got to roll a dice 100 times? Right? Do you think an average person will understand that? And at the same time, can we take that and turn it into a ritual, a rite of passage, a way to say that this is actually a way to turn the physical randomness of the universe into something digital that will protect your money? Can we sort of make that a custom and something that we do as a community and sort of pass on to every next generation of Bitcoiner that comes our way? So Francisco, over to you. Do you think that rolling dice is something that the average person will do on their self-custody journey?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, because the majority of people wanted to buy a Coldcard or an hardware wallet to have that being done on their behalf. And that is because it's a big ask to the people. They should do it, but they are afraid to do it, because what if they don't throw it? And what if there are flaws in the dice? And they cannot control how they generate entropy in their mind, so they scared and they prefer not to do. It's difficult to understand the mathematics, or why I see the phrase cannot be cracked. It's probably generated, but it's also difficult to understand how to properly generate with the rolled dice the correct seed phrase and the math behind it. So it's a big ask. I think the industry should find the solution where this can be a mistake on the generation of entropy cannot be a barrier anymore, because it's actually a big ask to the user. And then you can educate, you can explain, but if we think about like 10 years ago, hardcore Bitcoiners, and it was advised already to roll dice, and they all knew it, but 5,000 Bitcoin, unfortunately, didn't do. And now, how can we think now that in the era of ETF and etc., can somebody with interest in self-custody go to roll the dice if hardcore Bitcoin 10 years, most of them they didn't do? This is a big question. Yeah. So there is another element here of responsibility in the rolling the dice, which is not trivial, because you know better than me. Nothing is casual. It's random if you don't do it properly. So I don't want to shield my brother, but that's what I want people to experience, not to have to worry in doing that. And I bring my solution. If people they are good and they roll the dice, then fine. if they're afraid to rolling the dice badly, then maybe they're looking into the protocol security.
Well, I think Tony has some pushback for that, probably. But before we get to Tony's thoughts, I do want to bring up this website by Keith Mukai, a developer over at Seed Signer. He made a whole site called Dice to Seed. I'll put this in the comments for you guys to take a look at it yourself. But it goes through every single step of how to properly roll dice to generate a seed phrase. And one of the biggest takeaways is that you don't need casino grade dice. You can just use regular dice. It's just as good as long as you do the proper number of rolls. But yes, I will put this in the comments right now for anybody interested. Great site, very thorough, gives you everything you need. But Tony, would love your pushback or your thoughts on dice being too hard for the average Bitcoiner to take part in.
Yeah, man, I heard that comment so many times. Why would it be hard for people to wrap their brains around this? This is what I find amusing. You have to understand that Bitcoin wasn't here to convenience everybody. People who mock dice rolls or think it's silly, it's because they're trying to fit Bitcoin into a world that they've known their entire lives. Bitcoin doesn't care about that world. It was created to replace it. It has its own rules, right? And if you want to be part of that sovereign future, you're going to have to learn these rules. Bitcoin's not going to wait. It doesn't care about your feelings, your emotions, your ego, your whatever it is. Rolling dice takes 5 minutes. Like, you really have to go out of your way to screw this up. People play backgammon. People go to the casino. People use dice in like 100 million ways their entire lives. Now, all of a sudden, it's a problem to roll entropy, where all you have to do is put 5 or 10 dice in a box, shake it for 3 seconds, put it on the table, and read the numbers from left to right. Do that 100 times, done. What's so difficult about this? If it's your ego telling you that's retarded, well, that's your problem. It's not Bitcoin's problem, right? So again, this is something the world has never known. So we need to adapt to it in order to get to the other side where it becomes the future of money, which I genuinely believe it will be, because we are Bitcoin. And as long as enough people opt into that system and out of one that is of complete corruption and destruction and fraud and every possible bad thing you can imagine, Bitcoin continues to grow. This is why they can't stop it. But they can attack the narratives to instill fear, to instill doubt, to instill everything they can to keep you locked into a system that they control. That's what they want. And that's what you need to resist as much as possible. This will likely not be the last story or headline of bad news that comes our way. There's probably going to be a lot more. But again, with every piece of bad news, it brings attention to weaknesses that no one is paying attention to. And that levels up the baseline significantly higher, right? This Coldcard incident has brought the community together in a way I've never seen since the day I got into Bitcoin. There are projects now that are being funded to use AI to go over all the products in the Bitcoin space that we assumed were safe. And it has found thousands of vulnerabilities and critical flaws that now are going to be fixed extremely fast. That is good news, because now it makes the attacks that much harder, right? And every time they come, every time we level up. Because again, as long as enough people believe in Bitcoin, as a true sovereign independent money and no longer want to be part of a system of abuse, we progress positively into the future. So if it's dice rolls today, shaking milkshakes tomorrow, it doesn't matter, right? As long as your money is safe and is in your control. That is the power that Bitcoin provides you. And again, it doesn't care about your thoughts, your ego, or your feelings. You need to learn these skills. At some point, they'll become much simpler, because it's like every piece of technology. It matures, it gets simplified as adoption, grows with it. But until we get there, it's not a big ask to put 10 dice in a shoebox and shake it and line numbers from left to right, right? It's a 5-minute process. We've tested it, right? We've tested it. It is as dummy-proof as it gets. If you're not sure how to do it, ask someone. That's what we do at the Bitcoin Way. And there's many other people, outside the Bitcoin Way that also do this. Either it's like, if you're the do-it-yourself types, there's many videos you can watch. Articles like the one Keith wrote is brilliant. It lists it all in very simple English. So if you're one of those that likes that, be my guest. But don't let bad news paralyze you into doing nothing. That is, in my opinion, the worst thing you can do. which is way more destructive than rolling some dice or picking words out of a hat to generate your private keys, right?
100%. The journey of being a Bitcoiner is one of radical responsibility, and you got to keep going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of responsibility, because the rest of the world, it's set up so that you don't take responsibility, that you give your rights and your wealth to other people to take care of, and you are just coddled and given your dopamine-inducing devices to make sure that you don't think about these things. Well, Bitcoiners, no, we want you to be responsible, be awake, and take control of your wealth and power. And Francisco, I want to kick it over to you. You guys, of course, are a multi-sig proponent. And one of the big phrases to come out of this whole debacle is multi-vendor, multi-sig, right? Using different manufacturers to create this multi-sig wallet. What wallets are you looking at these days, and what do you advise to Bitcoiners in your community to create a multi-vendor, multi-sig?
Yes, I agree with Tony that everybody should roll the dice if they feel confident to do it. So if they are in doubt between not doing it, they should do it if they use our product, because in the end, nothing changes. They will be saved by the protocol security in any circumstances. So at that point, they might even do it. But if they're losing other product, they have to decide on the nuances rather than they are confident to do it. They seek advice, as Tony said, or they just do them themselves. But it's a manual process, so if they don't do it as they should, they can have some flaw. But anyway, with our as much as BitVault, as far as BitVault is concerned, I think it's important to stress that we utilize, we are compatible with two hardware wallets at the moment. One is Keystone Bitcoin only, one is Jade Plus, and both allow to insert your own entropy. So you can do it if you know how. And we are going to expand to other hardware wallets, but we still believe that hardware wallets are the cornerstone of the security for non-custodial, because in the end you need to undergo a manual process, and we only utilize hardware wallet with a screen, and regarding the generation of the seed, it happens only in the hardware wallet, and the process is fully air-gapped. So fully air-gapped with the screen, it's really high security. Where BitVault stands out is to the fact that there are two in the mini-script, two spending paths. One with a short time delay, like you can set 2 hours to 15 days for security against physical attacks and hacks, and a longer time delay of 1 year, which makes the setup self-custody. So you can sign with your own 2 keys after 1 year if the convenient service which facilitates the short-term delay doesn't respond anymore. So in the end, you are fully self-custody with the convenience of having been protected against physical attacks and hacks. And regarding the loss, the leak of entropy of both commercial hardware wallet A and B, the advantage is that you will always have the priority over the attacker to sign before of him, because the second part, which is A plus B plus 1 year, so your own 2 keys plus 1 year waiting, that gets rolled over every 1 year. So it never matures unless you want it to mature. And that, as a consequence, give you the advantage to be able to sign before of the attacker, and that's great advantage. You should use it. And so you can either generate the seed with hardware wallets or roll the dice, but if you adhere to use this protocol security with BitVault, if you make mistake, it doesn't matter, because you can always sign before the attacker. So it's a no-brainer to do it, maybe. And that's the advantage of multi-sig. Multi-vendor, multi-sig is better. You can have 1 Jade plus, 1 Keystone. You can roll your entropy, but utilize the protocol security.
There you go. All right, and Tony, over to you. What kind of hardware wallets are you looking at and advising for your clients?
Well, I mean, at our end, we've always had a criteria around these wallets, right? It had to be open source or verifiable source, Bitcoin only, fully air gapped, no funny business when that's involved. One of the hardest things, for someone who's teaching an individual about self-custody is really to find that balance between security and also practicality. At the Bitcoin way, we set the minimum threshold very high, simply because we want people to come in this and get their proper training from day one, on the right foot. It's not about convenience and what have you. So this is why we took an approach. We had two approaches. We had what we called an advanced single sig, and we had multisig for those who were ready for it. All of these packages, all of these processes never involved the dependency on any third party. That was a key factor in all our training. So you and you alone were the sole custodian of your keys, no matter what. And so from day one, we deployed, the use of advanced passphrases. I mean, these weren't, words like cat and dog. We had, mandated specific criteria after 16 to 21 characters or more, properly safeguarded with redundancy and what have you, in addition to everything else that we use to configure these wallets, which is why, through this test of time with this Coldcard incident, thankfully, none of our clients were affected because they had extremely high independent entropy because of that passphrase that either protected the wallet currently or bought sufficient time for us to level it up to the next stage, right? And for the multisig, we have a lot of clients that we train on multisig, but we do it, with them being the custodians. So either it's one user that manages all the keys, or it's their own inner trusted circle that we train independently in order to manage, the key that they are responsible for. We don't take part in any of that. I mean, the Bitcoin way holds no keys. We don't do any of that stuff. We train people on how to become their own sovereign army, right? And so that balance is what we're continuously fine-tuning. And this is where, I want to sort of like push back on some of the misinformation of some folks that are jumping on this crisis to shed a negative light on something that's simply not true. Like right now, there seems to be a fight against single points of failures. Don't use one wallet. It's a bad idea. Why? They didn't all fail. First of all, there was one product that had a bug that's not representative of everyone. Second of all, if you're using a hardware wallet with a passphrase, that's no longer a single point of failure, as long as you don't lose, the two components. But that added entropy is insanely strong. Like, don't think of it, it's just another word. It's just like whatever. It's not. Mathematically speaking, the entropy is extremely high on a randomly generated passphrase. So that's that. For someone who doesn't come from a technical background, you can't expect them to understand multisig properly. And this is where all these other companies come in, where they put themselves in the middle to sell, again, the convenience. But what irks me is that they don't talk about the trade-offs from that model. No privacy, risks, regulatory risks, compliance risk. Who talks about these? None of them mention them, but these are all real risks. You have a third party, an institution that is holding one of your keys. You go ahead and lose one of your keys, and a corrupt government prevents them from signing for you. What happens? You're done.
Your Bitcoin. Yeah,
absolutely done. If that company disappears, how many of their clients know how to rebuild the system themselves? Do they even know where to start? Chances are none of them do. How is that not a risk? This is the gap that we fill in. There's no third party. You are the only party, like fully loaded with the education that you need, that at some point, you don't even need us. You have everything you want. You are at your disposal to rebuild, remove, restructure, do whatever it is that you want, because you understand all of the components. That is the power of a sovereign individual. And I go back to the white paper. Find me a single character in that white paper that mentions third-party involvement in the custody of your Bitcoin. It doesn't exist, right? No. Okay, so these services are the legacy system using Bitcoin branding to sell a product. To me, that's not Bitcoin. Now, some people might prefer that model. That's a personal decision. However, they need to be aware of the trade-offs. Again, Bitcoin was not created to fit into this legacy system. It was created to replace it entirely. And that involves learning how to do it. You can't have a foot here and a foot there. It's like someone who wants a plan B, but wants to continue living in a shitty jurisdiction with high taxes and regulations they don't like. because they don't feel like moving. That doesn't work. You're either in or you're out. And if you're out, learn the process, learn the rules, respect how it's done, and progress that way. Live into the future the proper way. So this is always has been our approach here at the Bitcoin Way, and that's never going to change, because to me, that's true power. That's the power of a sovereign individual. That's what Bitcoin genuinely represents.
Yeah, and I completely agree that that's what we should all yearn for, right? But another thing we've learned in this is that a lot of people, they thought that they should go Coldcard because that was sold to them as the most safe, right? And then they never practiced, right? They didn't take that responsibility. They didn't know what they were doing in the time of duress when they actually had to move their Bitcoin when time was of the essence. And so it's really, we got to also, I understand that is the goal, right? Everything you're saying is that this technology allows you to be sovereign in a way that we are completely unable to in the past. But you have to be ready for it and to take on that responsibility. And you have to look at yourself in the mirror and make sure that you are fully equipped mentally for this next step. And before we move forward, we got to give a shout out to our friends over at Rhino, because all this doesn't make any sense unless you have Bitcoin. So let's talk about getting some Bitcoin yourself. Before, getting access to Bitcoin financial services was slow, clunky, and scattered across multiple different platforms. But Rhino is changing that. Rhino is a next generation Bitcoin banking app designed to handle all of your Bitcoin needs in one place. With Rhino, of course, you buy Bitcoin with zero fees. So you get more sats for every dollar that you spend, make payments over the Lightning Network instantly, and near zero fees there as well. Send cash globally, fast and easy over Bitcoin rails, and set up automatic savings, DCA, so you stack sats on your schedule and build wealth over time. Soon you'll be able to pay bills, direct deposit, and even save for retirement, all within the Rhino app. And they just added the functionality to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin. Rhino protects your Bitcoin while it's on the service with biometric verification, 24/7 fraud protection, and the confidence of knowing your Bitcoin is never, ever rehypothecated. And of course, you can withdraw to self-custody whenever you are ready. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com for both iOS and Android. Use the code Bitcoin News, one word, Bitcoin News, and Rhino will drop you $21 of free Bitcoin into your account when you deposit your first 100 USD. All right, go check out Rhino. They are great people, great team, and they are building a finance app for Bitcoin, everything in one place. Thankful to Rhino. Go check them out. So, of course, Tony was just talking about the sovereign individual who is ready for that utmost level of responsibility. Francesco, in terms of BitVault, who is your main demographic and who are you serving?
So we serve people, I think people need the multisig, people with which are holding from 6 months to 1 year at minimum of their work monthly salary. So I measure the economic loss in terms of time wasted in recouping that money. So if you have more than 6 months or 1 year, that makes sense to have a multisig. However, I agree with Tony that the current collaborative custody multisig are not ideal. They don't protect you against physical attacks. It only helps you if you lose one key. But the trade-off are probably worse than what you can achieve. So in BitVault, now we have an iPhone app, and because it's very easy to use, and as a coordinator which connects to our wallet. And I think having an iPhone as a coordinator is a great security choice, because in the end, if you just activate the lockdown mode, no hacker in the world has ever broke the lockdown mode. Anyway, you have the private keys into hardware wallet generated there, and there is a screen in the hardware wallet, so you should check the destination address on the screen. So having said that, we advise multisig if it brings real utility. Define a real utility in what we propose to the user. It will be protected against physical attacks, hacks, and the loss of entropy of both the wallet. Then this is just the beginning. We have already other improvement of the product, of the pipeline. We have solved the problem of total loss of the keys in no custodial with the b-ssl.com will be the next feature of BitVault. We are going to move to Taproot probably to achieve all of this. There are great things which can be done with tap leaves, with the mini script. And so in this stage, look into Multisig if you really want to either your protection, but collaborative custody, I don't recommend. However, it's true that BitVault in this version holds one key in AWS KMS, but soon will come out also the Umbrella app where user can self-host their convenient service and self-host key by inserting another hardware wallet. There are trade-offs even there regarding the physical tag. It really depends on the setup of the user, how confident he is, how far are the geolocation of the keys, etc. So I'm sure specialist advisors can also guide the user on what's better for them. I just want to highlight that the research and the things which can be achieved on self-custody are not done yet. What you see is commercially viable today. It's like, I think, 50% less of what we can get to. And we need to get there because people should have a banking-like experience, meaning that they don't think they can lose the keys in the bank. They can be attacked in the bank and they can be hacked in the bank. That's not possible in their mind in the banks. So we need to bring a self-custody at that level, at least. Otherwise, we don't conquer customers in self-custody because they will just buy the ETF, and that's the reality.
Yes, self-custody needs to continue to improve. And I think we're seeing that. We're working towards it as a community. And I'd like to highlight this, what the Bitcoin Way is doing. You guys actually have a webinar coming up talking about the future of self-custody. So Tony, tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, man, this is a highly recommended webinar. I urge everyone who's interested in, gaining a lot more insight into, what this looks like and what the future of self-custody is going to, be like. It's join. It's free. Tons of information. We're going to go over a lot of details here. But essentially, the message that is going to be pumped out, which has always been my message, is that self-custody is the final destination, guys. This is never going to change. And if it wasn't this valuable, the attacks wouldn't be happening, this fast, right? Like, there's a reason why the legacy system doesn't want people to learn this stuff. It's because, at some point, if enough do, then the other world becomes irrelevant. And so we are setting the foundation of proper education, no shortcuts, no workarounds. You do it right. And we're with you for as long as you want us. I mean, our work doesn't stop once the infrastructure is built. We babysit everyone for as long as they need to make sure everything is updated, that they're doing their training, that they're doing their transactions on a regular basis so that they become as autopilot as making a cup of coffee. And a piece of good news for you guys is that in light of this whole incident, I'd say close to 50% of our clients were doing transactions on their own without us. That is extremely bullish news. It's because the process works. And with enough guidance and repetition, at some point, people really become independent of us, of anyone. They are their own bosses, right? Full control all the time. So this webinar is going to, provide tons of details around, what this process looks like, what you can benefit from it. We've seen a massive increase in interest in Multisig, which, of course, we've always been doing, but now we've taken that up, significantly up a notch in light of this Coldcard event. But again, at the end of the day, the users and the users alone are the owners, the sole owners of their private keys. And we show them how to protect them, redundancies, geographical distribution for those who have access to that. If you don't have access to that, what are your other alternatives? No one is a sitting duck. No one is out of option. And you definitely do not need a PhD or a tech background to learn this stuff. It's not hard. It's just unfamiliar at first. And then it becomes part, of your everyday existence.
And I think a really good rule when it comes to self-custody is you need to treat your Bitcoin like it's worth 10x what it is today, right? Because look at this, gentlemen. Look what we have going on here. Bitcoin is up nearly 6% on the day, right? You don't know when this is going to happen. Bitcoin gets most of its gains, of course, in just 10 days every single year. And the rest of the days of the year are either flat or down. And yeah, Bitcoin can make unbelievable moves in very short amount of time. And so you need to make sure that your Bitcoin is where you want it to be and you can trust that setup. Let's just transition to a little bit on this conversation in terms of global money printing, debasement, the future of fiat, and why Bitcoin is so important. Of course, everybody likes to see number go up, but Tony, actually, let's do Francisco first. Francisco, when you see a chart like this, what do you think?
I think that you shouldn't trade Bitcoin because, as you said, the movement is so quick that you're going to lose. That you can beat the market by just holding it, and you have to hold it in self-custody. And I also think, and this is a deep thought I had, even if you are just there for the price, Bitcoin, and you might think, okay, I buy the ETF. If you do that, you are acting against your own investment, because self-custody is what makes Bitcoin valuable, and you using a instrument where, okay, maybe you can argue that in America and Europe is regulated well, but in other parts of the world maybe it will not, it's going to be, you have to trust. So the rules are not clear and they can cheat in the future, and they will if they can, worldwide. So if you don't if you buy the asset without self-custody, it's like you are buying a credit of gold where you believe that there is the actual rock when there isn't, and you are like allowing the issuer to print a limited amount of it. So you might think you are buying the asset, but you are giving up on scarcity. So I think that when you buy a asset like this and you see it going up, you should think that if you put into self-custody and you buy the actual thing, you strangle that candle going even more to the roof, because you are enforcing the scarcity. So your invested is valued double, and that's what you should think.
Yeah. And Tony, what about you? What's your reaction to this candle we see right here?
Man, how much time do we have here? I don't think an hour is gonna cut it. Look, the number is gonna go up forever. I mean, currently we are living in on a bankrupt planet. You know, every fiat currency out there is going to zero. The global reserve has a debt that is mathematically impossible to repay. The problem is most people don't understand this. They don't understand money, and they just default to the thinking that if I have more dollars, I'm going to be okay. Except, you know, the ways to get these dollars is not happening as quickly as it's actually losing value. It's lost over 99% of its value in the last decade or so, and so there's not enough things you can do or investments you can make on that failing platform that's going to keep up with with its failure rate. And so the key here, why Bitcoin is so valuable, is that it exists outside the system. No one can manipulate it. No one can print it to oblivion. No one can abuse its use. No one can do anything with it other than use it as money. And the key to this, as Francisco was saying, is to own it yourself. So I know it gets all people, you know, giddy, you know, when they see the number go up, because they're still measuring their wealth in dollars, which is the worst thing you can possibly do, because that dollar is going to zero at some point, right? It's a global reserve. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's a trajectory. And if you want to simplify the analogy, think of Bitcoin as its own country, right? Like, call it, you know, planet Satoshi, and you live on planet Satoshi, and Bitcoin is the money of that country. You're earning in it, you're saving in it, you're spending it. You're not worrying about what other people are doing. And so when I talk to folks in the United States, I'm like, when you get your paycheck, do you convert, like, you count it against the Mexican peso or the Iranian rial? Like, do you do that conversion in your head? No, of course not. All right, so why are you doing it with Bitcoin? It's because, one, you don't understand that Bitcoin is money, and two, you think the dollar is going to be eternal, which is not the case, right? One Bitcoin, tens of thousands of all that other toilet paper. And that number is going to continuously go up forever, because they are not going to stop printing that garbage. They can't. If they stop today, the whole thing collapses tomorrow. You want to see like World War X? that's when it happens. So it will never happen. But your purchasing power is going to continuously going down. And when people get hungry because they go into the supermarket and a chicken costs the same price as a car, right? Like, you have a problem there. It's not normal for people not to afford the basic necessities of life, like food, a home, clothes. Like, that's not normal, right? And financing it, having, you know, payment plans for a burger, that's madness. So when you start seeing services, you know, come up of that, to me, these are like blazing alarm bells that you need to get off that ship, because it's about to blow up any second now, right? And so they know this, and which is why they want to accumulate as much as whatever remaining supply as possible to build a financial bullshit empire on top of it, to sell it to those they know still don't understand anything. They are exploiting ignorance and fear to keep as many people as possible dependent on their shitty system. But the number of folks that see this happening and are opting out is also growing. And because of Bitcoin's finite supply, you don't need 100% adoption. You just need enough intelligent people to do this, and that, you know, sets the example for the rest of the world. And then, you know, necessity always becomes the best teacher. At some point, those who haven't learned that lesson are going to be like, oh shit, what do I do now? And the only way, the only exit is going to be into that future of Bitcoin in full self-custody, 100%. Fiat is a circus ticket. You use it when you need it. You don't save, you don't put your savings in it. At least I never put my savings in any fiat currency. That's just madness. If I need it for whatever, convert a little bit, sell that shit, move on, never think back, right? So that's the mindset that I think people need to get to, but it's going to take time, right? Like, I came from hell when Beirut blew up, and I absolutely lost everything. Everything got reprogrammed. So is it going to take such a calamity for folks to get to that level of understanding? I pray to God not, because it's not something I wish on anyone. But this Coldcard incident, people saw the bullet whiz right by them, and now look what happened. So imagine the day you get restricted access to your accounts, or you taste what hyperinflation looks like. What do you think happens? Is that the prerequisite to hyper Bitcoinization? Again, I pray that it's not, but we'll see what happens. I'm very bullish on the future. I know this because we are dealing with people on a daily basis. People are coming to us with intelligent questions. It's not about the number go up. No, nobody asks me anymore, when do I sell? When do I trade? Do I borrow against my Bitcoin? None of that stuff is Bitcoin. You stay away from all that counterparty risk 24/7, like you pretend it doesn't exist. Money, earn, save, spend, done.
Boom. Always love the Tony pump up speeches. You know, it brings you, centers you, and makes you realize why we're actually here. Well, we're getting towards the end of our time here. Francisco, where should people go to find out more about BitVault?
Oh, they can just head over to bitvault.sv, like Salvador. And there they can just utilize the old iPhone and download the app. There is 1 week for free. They can test it. They can use it on testnet with another iPhone, or they can use it with 2 hardware wallets, either J Plus or Keystone, to set up the actual wallet for free for 1 week. After that, there is an ongoing special offer where if you buy 1 year, you have 1 free hardware wallet. If you buy 2 years, you have 2 free hardware wallets. The hardware wallets remain yours. So it's really high time to grab this offer. I invite you to not to be contented with the current state of the Multisig wallet, with the current state of collaborative custody. You need more. You can easily have the protocol security to strengthen your holdings, and there is natural. You can also roll your dice and be perfectly mindful that nothing can happen. So I don't think there is a Multisig product better than this, which solves all of the fears and the problem currently for the users.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool new product, and I love to see self-custody being pushed forward in new, different directions. Time locks are something that we'll probably see a lot more in the coming years ahead. So I appreciate your service to the community. And Tony, let's just give one more shout out to this webinar you guys got going on September 30th.
Highly
2026.
recommended, guys. Please join. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. There's tons of valuable information that will be shared. I think everyone is going to benefit tremendously from this. Self-custody is not dead. In fact, it's never been stronger. The future is orange. Just learn the steps. It's really that simple.
The future is orange. Just learn the steps. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.